Some of us. This is going to be a new experience for a lot of people. And we're really looking forward to it. Well, I'm really looking forward to it anyway. It's it should be a great introduction to Buddhism from a proper Buddhist.
Well, you can't deny that. I'm wearing a robe. All right. So maybe just 13 participants. All right. So just to alert everyone that all these sessions will be recorded and uploaded onto our YouTube channel, so that people who are new or who have missed previous sessions could go back and view these sessions and then come and join us, right? And even for you who would like to visit, review what you have already learned or we've discussed through this forum, you could also go to our YouTube channel and then listen to the talks again. All right. So what I was thinking that we could go through is, I thought we could start with Namo Tassa, right? What the reason behind why Buddhists chant Namo Tassa before each and every sort of practice or after practice, before a Dhamma talk or a sermon that is given. We are used to chanting Namo Tassa. I thought we could sort of learn the meaning of Namo Tassa, right? And then move on to the 5 precepts, right? And the 5 precepts and what Buddhist and why the Buddha has admonished or taught us to sort of keep to the morality through the 5 precepts and the other precepts. But we will begin today by the 5 precepts. And if we have time, I thought we could also go into love and metta, right? Because we need a lot of it these days, don't we? So I thought we could go into sort of love and metta to sort of see what the Buddha has taught about it and how important it is for the practice that we all are trying to develop. Although some of us might not be sort of looking forward to sort of a long sort of path towards nirvana or nibbana, as we call it, but just be a good person. Maybe some of us just want to be good and to have a clear mind, to have stability of mind, to have some peace. And these topics that I've selected today, I thought would sort of relate to both those persons, the person who wants just clarity and peace of mind, and also to the person who wants to take the practice further into the next level, where the person wants to sort of work towards the attainment of enlightenment as taught by the Buddha. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. So when we start the session, I will mute all of your mics, right? And if you have a question, right, I think now I cannot, on my computer, I can't find the hand up button, but I have the clap emoji and the thumbs up emoji, right? So usually I ask people if they agree to something, if you want to say, okay, I understand, or something like that, you can use the thumbs up emoji. And if you have a question, then you can use the clap emoji, right? So then I will unmute your mic and you can ask your question. Please feel free to disturb me anytime, right? And with your interjection, with your question, to interject with your questions. No offense will be taken at all. This is a forum. We are here to discuss. The more questions we have, the more interesting all of this would be, right? Wonderful. So we usually chant Namo Tassa I will tell you all the meaning of it afterwards. To those of you who are used to the practice, right, you all can chant together with me, or you can just listen, right? Namo Tassa
Tassa
Bhagavato
Bhagavato
Arahato
Arahato
Samma
Sama Sambuddhassa.
Namo
Namo Tassa
Bhagavato
Bhagavato
Arahato
Arahato
Samma Sambuddhassa.
Sambuddhassa.
Namo
Namo
Tassa
Tassa
Bhagavato
Bhagavato Arahato
Samma
Sama
Sambuddhassa.
Sambuddhassa.
All right. Now, what is the meaning of Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa, and why do we chant it, right? Before each and every auspicious Buddhist related event, right? Now, during the time of the Buddha, the sages, the hermits, the monks were, of course, introduced after the Buddha attained enlightenment, but of course, the monks as well were revered members of the community. They were most respected. They were respected for the teachings, for the motivation the motivation and the inspiration that was given by these teachers, right, to the community, right? If you have heard, back in the day, there was a very rigid caste system, right? This caste system, no one could sort of overtake a caste, or you had to be born into a caste, right? And in India, I think India is the only country in the world where the caste system is a part of its constitution in the 21st century, right? So for example, if I may just use the example of a piece of property or land, right, owned by a low caster cannot be sold to an upper caste, right? So the deeds, the land deeds, the property deeds would have the caste and the lineage of the caste mentioned within the deed, right? And you can get into a lot of trouble if there is a change of hands between a low caste and upper caste, right? That is just to understand what it might have been at the time, right? Now, the highest caste at the time was the Brahmin caste, the Brahmanas, we say, right? What I am going to do is these Pali words, or these words that some of you might not be used to, I'm going to type it out in the chat section, right? So then for your reference, you can have it with you, the Brahmin caste, right? I have sent a note, I'm sorry, to everyone. Brahmin, right? So the Brahmin caste was the highest caste. Now these Brahmins were people who were born into they were sort of like the spiritual teachers and the advisors of the kings, the community of people, right? After the Brahmin caste, you had what they call the Shastriya, right? The Shastriyas. The Shastriya were the rulers, the kings, right? The ruling caste. They were the people who ruled the country, right? So as you are sort of the hierarchy, the monarchy is the Shastriya caste, right? Then you had the Vaishyas, right? Vaishya. The Vaishyas were the merchants, right? They were the ones who would travel from city to city in their bullock carts with the cows and, and would sort of deliver goods to everyone. They were the merchants, right? And then you had the Shudras. Now the Shudras, there are many castes within, there are subsects within this caste as well. And they are called somewhat the Untouchables, right? The Untouchables. And that is the lowest caste within the caste system, which was very much a rigid system, right? And an accepted lawful system within the time the Buddha was alive, right? Now, if you see the Shudras, the Vaishyas, the Shastris, the Untouchables, the merchants, and the rulers were all under the Brahmins, right? They listened to the Brahmins. They sought out advice from the Brahmins, right? So the respect that the community had towards the religious sect was very much a great amount of respect, right? So then we get the cultural representation of the reason why we usually chant Namo Tassa. This is to respect the teacher who has given us the doctrine, right? Now that is one part. Now, before we move on to the other parts, the reasoning or me explaining Namo Tassa, I want to just ask if I am going too fast or if I'm going too slow. Is this speed perfect? Because I'm notorious for like racing. All right, good. So now in today's society, it is important to understand that the caste system has shifted. Although we do not accept such a system, it is important to understand that the caste system has shifted. Now, it is not the Brahmins or the rulers who are the heads of our society. If we understand we are all governed, our emotions, the way we live, the quality of our life, and the quality of our mental health, everything is governed by the economy, isn't it? Right? The economy, right? The economy, this buying and selling, the demand and supply, the goods, the money, the currency, that is all to do with the Vaishyas or the merchants, as we would relate to the caste system, if we are to relate it to the caste system. It is all to do with the Vaishyas. Now the Vaishyas have become, or the merchants, the businessmen, right? The people who handle the big boys, the big players who handle the economy, who set purchase and sale patterns. This caste of people are the ones who now govern our society, right? The Buddha mentions, he talks about this. The Buddha's attendant was a venerable named, a monk named Ananda, right? Ananda. You're going to hear a lot about Ananda through all the sessions that we are going to have, right? The Buddha's attendant's name was Ananda. Now, Ananda was always with the Buddha. He was the longest serving attendant of the Buddha. So the Buddha at one occasion tells Ananda, there will come a time when our society is ruled and governed by the merchants. When this time comes, Ananda, this will be the time that the world will experience a steep decline in the respect for morals, right? And the Buddha has, there is a sutta, I will share it with you. The Buddha has mentioned this 2,600 years ago, right, with regards to the merchants. Why the Buddha explains? Because of when currency becomes the most important part of our livelihood, right, then we would do anything to gain more of it. we will do, yes, there are people who do good, but there are also people who do bad. And I think I do not need to mention any examples. We have many examples, right? We all know individually we have many examples. We just need to turn on BBC. Right? So now that is the backstory between this respect that we give to the teacher. Now, in Buddhism, the reason that we specifically chant Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa, and in many Buddhist households, we would find something like this, which is like a altar. Now, this is just a prop. We have a shrine room in the center. This is just a prop for the Zoom conference meetings. Right? So we would usually in the morning, we would get up and we would offer maybe a glass of water to the shrine, and sort of before we eat. Now in the temples, we would usually a part of the first part of the meal we would serve into a small bowl or a plate, and we would offer that to the Buddha, and there is a sort of a process of offering. Now this is done. Now of course the Buddha is not going to eat that plate of rice. But the reason that it is done is to mentally take in the idea that the Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha are or is accepted by me as my sort of guiding light, right? It is in that regard that this practice of keeping, we call it the Buddha Pooja. A puja is an offering, right? That we do these offerings to the Buddha in a way to in a way to tell ourselves that the Buddha's teachings is what we practice and believe. And this, we will go into it later on, these impulsions created by doing these certain acts of devotion brings a different sort of climate and energy into the processes of the mind. And we will go deeper into these processes as we progress in the class. It's a bit too much for today, right? It's a bit too much for today. Now, we'll go now in the chat section. Please give me a thumbs up if you're seeing the Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato. I put it in the chat section. Yes, you're seeing it. Wonderful. Right? Oh, I have put Namo. It should be N-A-M-O, not name. Okay, so I've made a small writing mistake there. It's Namo, N-A-M-O. Namo, the word Namo means, it's like this, the action of what we say. Another word is Vandana. I don't know if you've heard the word Vandana. It's homage, right? Paying homage. Namo Tassa Bhagavato. Bhagavato is the enlightened one. Arahato, Bhagavato, Arahato somewhat has a similar meaning. It means enlightened one, the omniscient one, right? And the fulfilled one. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa, right? Can we have some of you trying to sort of pronounce it so we can sort of get hold of the pronunciation? Can Mike start first, please, if you don't mind, Mike?
No problem. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Wonderful. Mike, can you do it once more without the sort of the tune in it?
It's what I'm used to.
So that the others can get the pronunciation pattern, yeah?
Yeah. It's Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Samma Sambuddhassa. Would another person would like to what about Gil? Would you like to? I'm trying to unmute her. I think she's having.
I don't think I can remember it even now.
No, I mean I put it on the chat section.
I can't see that, unfortunately.
Okay, so
I can't see where that is.
Are you on a computer?
It's actually all I've got are the 4 castes and the Namo. I can't see any more in the chat.
Okay, so what I will do is I will resend it. Okay. There you go. There you go, Gil.
Oh, Namo, Tassa. Oh, it's gone.
What?
It doesn't stay up for very long.
I've still got it.
Oh, no, it's there.
Oh,
It's there.
mine's disappeared. No, sorry.
All right. Then
I'm not quite sure I got the hang of this. Sorry.
yes, we all have to get used to it. Zoom.
I think there's a difference between the iPad. I think there's a difference between the iPad and the computer.
I think so. Yeah. It doesn't
I think the
go on.
iPad you can't get all the functions.
No, I'll have to try it on my computer, I think, next time.
All right. All right.
Apologies.
Vicky, would you like to try? Hold on, I'm trying to unmute your mic, Vicky. Yes.
I'm already unmuted.
Oh, wonderful. Vicky, would you like to try?
Okay. Namo Tassa Havato Bhavato.
Bante, you typed it wrong, Bante. It should be Bhagavato.
Oh my gosh.
It should be Bhagavato.
Yes, I typed it wrong. Yes, I'm sorry. There you go.
Okay. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa.
Namo Tassa. Very good. Wonderful. David, would you like to give
First try, not bad.
David, would you like to give it a go? Yeah. There you go, David.
Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arhato Sama Sambuddhassa.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good. Now, moving on, right? I'm going to unmute all of you again. Right. Moving on. Now, the 5 precepts, right? Now, the 5 precepts. Oh, before we move on to the 5 precepts, I also want to tell you, now this Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa, I think we are used to now. There are different meditations that use the word Namo Tassa, as a way of recollection, right? So how we would usually do it, we will go deeper, dwell deeper into it as we progress in the classes. But how we usually do it is, now you have to memorize the meaning of the Pali stanza, Namo Tassa, right? And we usually have the chanting beads, which I think is something that we are all used to, the chanting beads, right? Somewhat like the rosary, right? And we use the chanting beads, and one bead we one by one we chant Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. This, when done, yes, there you go. Mike is showing us a small bracelet of chanting beads. Trust Mike to have one of those at home. Right? So we would memorize the meaning of Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa and close our eyes, and in recollection we chant Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa in mind or verbally, and one bead, one after the other, we chant again and again and again. Now, what that does is the Buddha speaks about. Now, what I am going to tell you is mostly what the Buddha says, because that is why you're here, isn't it? Right? What does the Buddha say? This recollection is, in Pali, it is called Buddhanusati. Buddhanusati. Right? Buddhanusati. It is a type of meditation, right? Buddha, we know, is the Buddha. Anusati. Anusati means recollection. right? Anusati is recollection. So Buddha and Anusati, Buddhanusati, right? This is the recollection of the qualities of the Buddha, right? Now, this is by no means a technique of praising or worshipping the Buddha. Rather, it is a technique of instilling a sense of devotion towards the Dhamma, the practice, right? Now, the more respect that we have towards the practice, now if it is like, for example, we go to a very holy location, right? You might have, most of you might have visited certain holy destinations, not necessarily Buddhist, but belonging to different faiths, right? And because of the sort of the how it is advertised almost, with the sort of the glory of how holy it is and the history behind it, the moment that you sort of walk into such a location, you find yourself in awe and inspiration of the location. Now that is because, again, the history, the richness of the culture, all of these different reasons, right? Similarly, when you sit down to meditate, when you sit down to practice vipassana, insight meditation, or any other meditation, if you have a sense of deep devotion, knowing that this meditation is going to do so much of good for you, the meditation is going to be easier. The meditation is going to be easier, right? How it happens, the scientific side and the spiritual side, I will explain to you as we go on, right? But with the sense of faith, right? With the sense of faith, with the sense of faith, the practice becomes stronger, right? The practice becomes stronger. Now, the 5 precepts, right? Do we know the 5 precepts? Can I have a thumbs up if we know the 5 precepts? Okay. Oh, I'm all right. Oh, there are a lot of people. I'm sorry. I'm on the gallery view. I can only see a few, so I have not seen the rest of you. Hello, everyone. All right, wonderful. Now the 5 precepts. Now I'm going to put up the 5 precepts. I'm also going to send you a very nice link that I found done by BBC that you can sort of visit as a visit, and there is a nice display and an introduction into the 5 precepts, right? Okay. So the 5 precepts, it is important to know that the 5 precepts were not introduced to the world by the Buddha. No. At the time the Buddha was living, that the Buddha was living, within decent, distinguished, educated, and pious communities alike, they all believed that protecting or adhering to these 5 precepts allows a person to have a peaceful life, right? Allows a person to have a peaceful life. So the 5 precepts are actually older than Buddhism itself. It was there very much before Buddhism, right? If I may just put, bits and parts, things that do not really, just some extra information. Now, the meditative community of the world existed long before Buddhism existed in the world, right? You might have heard now about the rishis. I wonder if you've heard about the rishis, right? The rishis were very much a part of the Himalayas and that part of the world long before Buddhism existed. And these rishis, there was also a very nice documentary done by BBC regarding the power of these meditators living in the Himalayas, where they were able to meditate and go into states of mind that enabled them to remain warm in these high altitude, very cold climates, right? There was a nice documentary. If I find it, I will send it to you all, right? It was a very nice documentary done by BBC, and you could see one thing that the reporters, or rather the people who were doing the documentary, did was they took these huge blankets, very heavy blankets, and they dunked it in water, and they asked the rishis, they put it on the rishis and asked the rishis to meditate, right? And as the rishis meditate, on the camera itself, on the video itself, you could see as they go into meditation, you can see the water vapor evaporating, like steam coming off their bodies. And at the end of the meditation, the blankets are all dry, right? Now, you could imagine the amount that you could save on electricity bills. Now, that was an unnecessary comment. All right. So it is very much this meditative techniques are very much existent in the world before Buddhism. But what the Buddha introduced into the world was a technique of vipassana, insight meditation, right? Which we will discuss about next week, right? Now, the 5 precepts, now we will go through the 5 precepts. Would someone like to read out the 5 precepts for all of us? How about Jim? Would you like to read out the 5 precepts for all of us?
Where are they? In the chat box?
Yeah, in the chat box, yes.
5 moral precepts are to refrain from taking life, i.e. killing any living creature, to refrain from taking what is not freely given, i.e. theft, to refrain from misuse of the senses or sexual misconduct, i.e. overindulgence in sex or committing sexual offences, to refrain from wrong speech, i.e. lying or gossiping, and to refrain from intoxicants that cloud the mind, i.e. drugs or alcohol.
All right, now you can hear me, yes? Wonderful. Okay. Now, the 5 precepts as a whole. The first one, not killing, right? The second, not stealing. The third, it is not to do, there is a mistake here done by BBC. Now, this is from BBC that I've taken. The mistake, it's not overindulgence in sexual relations. That is not what it's talking about. This is about violating another person's body, right? Sexually. This is about going on with a partner that is not your own partner, right? Going about enacting with having intimate relations with a person who is not your partner, not your husband, not your wife. That is what so it is not overindulgence, right? It is basically not violating a person's body, another person's body, and respecting your partner enough that you do not go about with another, right? The fourth is lying, right? Which includes white and black lies, right? And the fifth is intoxication, right? We will go into detail about these, right? Now, all in all, these precepts are about respect, right? Now, from 1 to 5, these actions are committed by a person who is unstable in some way, right? For example, if we take the first one, a person who respects and loves one's own life will understand the love and respect that another has for their own life, right? In refraining from killing, one is able to develop a respect for life, right? Now, if we would, this practice that we are in, now if we have, I'm sure all of you have tried meditation, right? All of us have tried meditation. When you sit down, right, and when you close your eyes, just as I have mentioned with regards to Namo, Tassa, when you have respect towards the practice, the mind is calm. When you have so much of when you are so into and passionate about the practice, your mind is instilled within samadhi, concentration, very fast, right? Compared to a person who does not have much faith in the practice of meditation, mindfulness, right? Just in a similar way, right? In a very similar way, a person who respects one's own life will respect the livelihood of all the people around that person, the community, right? The second one, a person who earns an honest living is a person who is undisturbed by people because he has done no wrong to other people, right? Because of that reason, he enjoys a happy livelihood. He's able to smile and approach people, right? Because there is nothing that he's running away from. Now, if I may just add some more information for you to just remember. Now, when you ordain as a monk, right? When you go through the process of becoming a monk, you are asked 10 questions, right? Now, before you become a monk, and when you ask your preceptor or your teacher to bestow the precepts of monkhood upon you, you are asked 10 questions. One of these questions is, are you in debt? Right? Are you in debt? Another question is, do you have the permission of your parents? Another question is, do you have the permission of your partner? If you are married, you are asked, do you have the permission of your partner? Now, these questions, now look at these questions. Are you in debt? If I am to say yes, then my teacher would say, or the preceptor would tell the monk to be, go resolve your debt and come back. Right? This is to ensure that when one is now coming into this life of practice, contemplation, meditation, vipassana, insight meditation, that one is able to have a free, peaceful mind, that one would then be able to devote towards the practice and development of consciousness, right? And each one of these precepts attributes to a person being able to develop that higher consciousness, right? Higher consciousness. The refraining from sexual, if one respects oneself, one's body, again, I would say one would not want to violate another person's body. We will respect, right? We will respect. Now, when it comes to speech, lies, now there is a view I have heard many times, maybe too many times, white lies are quite all right. White lies are quite all right, right? The Buddha says Now, again, another piece of information. Now, there is a book, Jatakas. There is a book called the Book of Jatakas. Now, Jatakas, Jatakas. Now, Jataka stories are the life stories of the Buddha before his last birth, right? So there are a lot of stories about how the Buddha practiced certain perfections, and how he donated, how he practiced restraint, how he, there are many stories which sort of shed light on the Bodhisattva. Now, before the Prince Siddhartha became the Buddha, we refer to him as the Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva. It's not double B, it's one D. Bodhi, double one D. Bodhisattva. Now, actually, if Bodhi is enlightenment, right? B-O-D-H-I, Bodhi, is a Pali word, one of the Pali words, which means enlightenment, right? Now, we would refer to the Bodhi tree, you might have heard. You might have heard about the Bodhi tree, right? So the Bodhi tree is where the tree that the Buddha attained enlightenment under. So it is called a Bodhi tree. So Bodhi means enlightenment. Sattva. Sattva is the one who is looking forward to, trying to attain, right? Trying to attain. So in the right terminology, if we are trying to attain enlightenment, we are all bodhisattvas, right? If we are trying to attain enlightenment, we are all bodhisattvas, right? So during the time that the Buddha was a bodhisattva, practicing and training to attain enlightenment, the Buddha says that he, out of the 5 precepts, he has committed each and every one of them except lying. It is said that the Buddha, in his time of training as a bodhisattva, has never lied, right? Has never lied. And in a sutta, there is a sutta called the Maha Lakkana Sutta. In a sutta called, in a sutta called the Maha Lakkana Sutta, the Buddha describes the reason as to why there were so many people who would listen to the Buddha's teaching and do as he told and believe the word that he spoke. Now, we might have experiences. Sometimes we find it difficult. We find it difficult even getting our children to do something for us. Right? Sometimes we find it such a hassle to convince our kids to do something for us, right? But the Buddha, in many suttas, it talks about how the Buddha would say something, right? And the monks and the kings and the queens and the princes and the ministers and the Brahmins and all of these people would respect the word of the Buddha with such high esteem, right? And the Buddha says, what is the reason behind all these people believe? Because I have never lied. I have always spoken the truth. And as a karmic result, my word is welcomed by the people who hear it, right? That is said in the Maha Lakkana Sutta. Maha is great, Lakhana is the characteristics, Lakhana. Sutta is discourse. So the sutta, or the discourse on the great characteristics of the Buddha, right? So that's just a bit of, information for you, right? So, lying is very important. Lying is also, now yesterday during our sutra class, day before yesterday, in our sutra class on Monday, we actually discussed a sutta which specifically, the Buddha goes into detail specifically about the act of lying. And the Buddha says, if one is used to lies, then the person is capable of any wrong, right? And we might have a lot of experience with this. The amount of things that we would say and do to now keep or have people do what we want to do, or to give people the image that we want them to have. The extent to which that we will go to maintain this, the Buddha says, is when you start or get into the habit of lying, there is no wrong that person is not capable of doing. That person will sort of go on and on and on, right? Just something for you to remember, right? So it is very important in the practice of Dhamma, this truthfulness, being truthful, honest, and authentic is very important to the practice, because we are trying to bring out the most authentic form of our being, our minds, to understand a reality within these phenomena in a way that we are now able to reach a profound, supreme state that we refer to as enlightenment, right? And these acts hinder or keep the mind from reaching such subtle states, right? Such subtle states. Now, if you have tried Anapana meditation or breathing meditation, right? Breathing meditation. Now, the usual instruction given to a person who does breathing meditation is pay attention, focus on the involuntary breath, isn't it? Right? On the involuntary breath, not the voluntary breath, but the involuntary breath. With practices such as the breathworks practices, which you might have heard of, right? Where we manipulate the breath. Now, those practices are developed to help with anxiety, depression, and also there are certain techniques that uses the voluntary breath, but the original practice of breathing meditation taught by the Buddha involves the awareness over the involuntary breath. Right? Now, if you have ever tried to be aware of the involuntary breath, it is difficult to do it in one sitting, right? Why is it difficult to do it in one sitting? Because the mind, to be aware of such a subtle sensation at the tip of your nose, right? The mind needs to be subdued. The mind needs to become less busy and sort of less frantic, right? That enables the mind to sort of now be aware on the tip of the nose, right? The tip of the nose. Yes, Mike.
There we go. I would appreciate it, Bente, if you qualified what you mean by involuntary breath, because
yes,
involuntary breath is ordinary breathing, I believe. Is that what you mean? Ordinary breathing.
Ordinary breathing. And ordinary breathing, involuntary breath. And even tapping into the mind, even if you try right now to just be aware of your normal breath, the moment that you bring your mind to it, the mind starts controlling it. We are such control freaks in that way. Right? So how do we find in that balance? I remember when I first sort of ordained as a very young monk, when I was trying to meditate, because I was used to the body scan meditation, or what in Pali we call Vedananupassana, right? Vedananupassana, or the body scan meditation. So I was used to that, before I got ordained. And now when I had to go into the monastery and start meditating,
Kaya Pasana, not Vedanupassana.
I'm sorry, Kayanupassana, but the meditation on sensation, that is what I was, meditation on sensation, that is what I was doing, Vedanupassana. And so when my teacher then told me, okay, we do not do Vedananupassana in this monastery, our technique starts from Anapanasati, which is the awareness of breathing, right? So I was like, oh God. Right. I'm sure I did roll my eyes at my teacher. Because I knew I did try to meditate. I did try to do breathing meditation before going on to Vedana or the contemplation of sensations. And it was just difficult, right? It was just difficult because every time that I attempted to bring my mind down to the breath, to be aware of the ordinary or the involuntary breath, it would always start controlling it. Right? It would always start controlling it. So I was having a hell of a time. Right? But of course, with respect to the teacher, and of course the technique of the meditation center, which is the PAOK meditation center, which I was at, with respect to that, of course, I started practicing Anapanasati or a breathing meditation. And the first day was just horrible. It was like a war between my mind and myself. I think at one point I even called myself an idiot. But as I progressed, I did not give up. As I progressed, slowly, I found my breath was becoming more peaceful. Now, this was with about 2 weeks of strenuous practice. Right? Strenuous practice. 2 weeks of strenuous practice, I found mind was now able to be aware of the most subtle states of movement, emotion, and sensations. Right? The food in the monastery started tasting better. Right? The sensations on my feet were clearer, or rather more sort of distinct. I could really feel the wetness of the ground. Everything started, and I was also more emotional. So certain things, I would feel it more emotionally than I would usually feel, right? And when I sat down now, I found a subtle balance between controlling and not controlling. And that balance is such a blissful state to be in. A process of as if watching, like I am now observing all of you, right? Such a peaceful state, because the mind does not instigate in any way to control. The mind is somewhat detached, but it is very aware of what is going on, right? Of what is going on. Now that is the breathing meditation. So we are talking about the involuntary breath. That was just a small story time for you. Right? So, so the Buddha spoke about the importance of protecting and keeping to the purity of morality which would then enable one to live a peaceful life that then one would be able to devote to the practice of attaining higher consciousness. This is taught in all spiritual traditions of the world. Any spiritual tradition with a meditative practice, morality is very much emphasized, right? This morality, right? Even I will go into the scientific parts maybe next week, right? Where even there is a biological shift in the processes of the brain when we are able to tap into deeper states of mind from which enables us, which then biologically supporting a meditative journey in the mind, right? I'll go into those details a little bit later, right? Now, where are we in terms of the understanding of the precepts? Do you have any questions? Shall I just unmute all of you? Yes. So discussion time. Any questions that you might? Yes.
Just the first one about to refrain from not taking life. Is that just human life?
All life.
All life.
So this is okay. All of these things needs to be done with volition. Now, let me explain to you what volition is. Volition is, in Pali, we call it Chetana. Right? Chetana. Chetana is volition. Volition is now you want to do it. Now, let us say that you are doing something in the garden, or or you're walking somewhere on the road, on the pavement, or and you unknowingly, you do not know, you're looking forward and you're walking. You killed an ant or an insect. This does not entail the breaking of the precepts. It needs to be a deliberate action, right? It needs to be a deliberate action. Let us very briefly, I'm not going to go into it today. Kamma, the word kamma, we all know the word kamma, yeah? Kamma, K-A-M-M-A, right? The root of kamma is, now the Pali word is made by the root kam, K-A-M, right? Kam means action, right? Action. The action itself is the kamma, right? The action itself is the kamma. There's a lot to discuss, just this sentence is not enough, right? But we are going to discuss it slowly, but know that the action itself is the kamma. So the breaking of the precept is the entailment of the kamma. Do we understand? Right? What is then, what is it in the kamma that makes the action something which could break or obstruct a practice? Right? Can we think about that for a minute, please? What is it in the action that it could hinder or break? Is it just in our minds? Is it just a doctrine, sort of a dogmatized sort of view that hinders my practice? What is it? Right? I'm going to unmute all of you again.
Is it intent?
Intent, that is chetana or volition, the intention, right? But intention then what breaks our practice or hinders our practice?
The result of the intent.
Sorry?
Result of the intent.
intent is, yes, intent is a general, intent is right, you're correct. But there is a word I want to hear. There is a word that we all know. What do you think?
I mean that if we see we're gardening and we see a slug and we deliberately step on it, we've taken the life of that slug deliberately and do that. Am I getting warm? I mean, is that assumption that we
Janet is very cheeky. Yes, you're very warm, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine.
Motive.
Just imagine. I'm sorry, Keita, did you say something?
Is it motive?
Motive, intent, volition, these are same, you know.
Decision.
Decision.
A decision that you make to do something.
Okay, you made a decision, but what is going to give you, what is going to make you enact it? And in enacting it, right, intent is going to make you enact it, but in enacting it, what do you create in the mind?
Yeah, the negative emotion that comes from that.
Negative emotions are created by what?
By your sense of morality.
Okay, don't go there.
Mindful. Because you're unmindful.
No. Think about, okay, let's say you're giving someone a nice sort of caressing of the cheek, right?
Sensation.
Right? Then you're giving someone a slap on the face. Right? Now what? The caressing of the cheek and the slap on the face, right? What does it take to create this motion of the slap?
It's the intensity of the sensation.
The intensity of the energy.
The energy.
The energy that we create is the karma. That energy is the impulsion that hinders our spiritual progress, right? Because this energy, when it is created, the neurotransmitters, the neural pathways in the brain picks this up, right? You know, sometimes we have lived a very happy life, but all of a sudden, when I was walking on the road, I saw a man being hit by a car, died on the spot, and I was scarred for life. That is only an example. That did not really happen. Right? Now, what scarred me? That energy that was created in me through the seeing of that visual, right? That energy. Right? So the more passion that we have for the practice, the more sort of faith that we have that the practice will bring us mental calm, clarity, right? That is going to pick your energy up, right? We know, when, very good-hearted, good spiritual people, they have a good meditating spiritual people have a bright, radiant aura, right? Have a very nice bright aura. There are some people, they look very good, but you don't feel like talking to them. They physically they are very appealing, but you don't feel like talking to them. But sometimes you find a person who is not so attractive, but you find a sense of attraction, right? That energy, that vibration, the electromagnetic waves, these are all born of the consciousness and the energies that we choose to feel every day. Right? Yeah. Do we? Did yes? Vicky, yes.
Yeah. I just wondered how it fits in when you're actually having to perhaps you're trying to survive something.
When you're trying to survive something, could you give me an example if you don't mind? So that I
I mean, say in self-defense or For an that's kind of an extreme example, I suppose. But another example of mine is that I never kill anything. I try not to kill anything when it comes to wasps and bees, and certainly not bees, but wasps and things like that. I try and help them survive rather than kill them. But I have noticed the odd ant coming into my home recently. So, you know, that's one end of the spectrum is, oh, I've got ants, I need to get rid of them because they will just take over otherwise, which is one form of survival. And then you've got the other more extreme survival where perhaps you're having to fight somebody or protect yourself.
Okay. What would the Buddha say? Right. The Buddha would, in this regard, Vicky, right, in terms of survival, in terms of sort of living, right, the Buddha would say, first of all, what is important? That is the first thing. What is a priority, right? What are we working toward mentally, spiritually to attain? That's one. The other thing is the habits that we create, the way that we sometimes treat the ant could very easily trickle down to the way that we treat the rest of life, right? And that understanding, the Buddha would say, then decide what is worth, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, in when it comes to enlightenment, right, and the processes and the sacrifices we make for enlightenment, is trying to make the mind more subtle so that we are able to touch these states of consciousness. That does not come through these practices, right? So that is a challenge. That is a challenge. This is where our patience is tested, right? Because when you sit on the ground, we know how painful it is sometimes to sit down and meditate. We all know the pain of it, right? It is not an easy process. The patience that we have for that ant, I also have ants these days, right? The patience that we have for the ants trickles down to the patience that we have during our time of meditation. Without that patience, without this patience, we are unable to progress in the path of Dhamma and go into the higher attainments, right? That is why before anything else, right, the Buddha, I like to use this example. If you have an umbrella, under the umbrella of Dhamma, you have your livelihoods, you have your all of it, right? But Dhamma should not be in line with your livelihood and your other thing. It should sort of be like the protector and the overseer of our life, right? According to Dhamma, we act and behave, right? And that is where the process of enlightenment speaks about a state of stream entry, or what we call sotapanna, right? Sotapanna, right? Apanna, sotapanna. Sotapanna, apanna is entering, sota is a stream, right? The stream enter, we know, is the first stage of enlightenment. This stage of enlightenment is reached when a person develops unwavering confidence in the Dhamma. Unwavering confidence in the Dhamma. Now, this unwavering confidence in the Dhamma is very much different to the sort of the blind faith that we are sometimes expected by certain different faiths. This unwavering confidence in the Dhamma you cannot reach by just reading a book, right? This unwavering faith in the Dhamma is reached through practice, through academic study and proper understanding. The Buddha says sila, morality, right? Morality subtle, makes subdues the hindrances in the mind, enabling the mind to operate and cognize elements that are more profound and subtle than what we are usually used to. Morality, sila, samadhi, focus and attention. When we tap into the different parts of the brain which allows us to now operate through present moment awareness, not putting in the dialogue, not having the internal dialogue and banter going on, when we are able to operate with a wholesome, realistic base of mind, that is what we call sila, samadhi. Right? I'm going to write that sila, samadhi. And the last, samadhi. And this last being panya, wisdom. With the morality and the samadhi, with the morality and the concentration, the mind now, the way that the mind cognizes elements that are introduced to us through the five sensory doors now becomes very different. It becomes very different. It is even scientifically proven that a meditator cognizes elements differently to a person who does not meditate, right? To a person who does not meditate. This panya, this wisdom, panya is wisdom. You're going to hear the word panya a lot, right? So this wisdom that we talk about, there is two types. There is jnana, and panya. Now my name is Panya Vansa, so it means lineage of wisdom. I like to say that sometimes. Right? So jnana is knowledge, right? Panya is wisdom, right? Knowledge is now all of your degrees, your professional qualifications, all the knowledge that you have, the etiquette, the manners, the decorum, right? All of that falls under jnana, that part. The knowledge that is necessary to live peacefully in this world, right? Wisdom is the data necessary to excel into profound states, profound supra-mundane states, enlightenment. The data necessary to attain enlightenment is panya, right? Panya. This panya cannot be developed. The Buddha always says, the Dhamma is only for the wise, right? The Dhamma is only for the wise. This wisdom is for those who are able or have the mental capacity to be able to see something from the terms of reality, right? From the terms of reality. So prajna is what, or wisdom is what enables us to attain enlightenment. To attain enlightenment. So each and everything, the way that we process all the information that we get daily, plays an important part and role in the amount of energy that our consciousness has, the electromagnetic field around us, the way people interact with us, and the way we interact with people, right? So this practice, mind you all, that this practice is about ourselves, is about ourselves. Living in a monastery for so many years, I have in too many occasions heard of events when or instances when people would sometimes compare their practice with another person's practice. I meditate more than him. I can sit longer than that person. Right? This has, when this practice is about ourselves, the speed by which we travel and tread on this path varies from person to person. The baggage we carry is very unique and different, and we need to learn how to work with this baggage that we have been carrying, right? And to slowly let that baggage down and release yourself into mental clarity, stability, peace, and a love for this transformation, right? To a love for this transformation, right? So now, any questions?
I've got
Yes.
something I'd like to ask, but it might
I'm sorry, I need to leave.
So it might have been something you've talked about before. And it's not really about the precepts, it's about when you were talking in the first place about castes. And probably I should have asked that, but I didn't quite know how it was going to go. And I was just curious to know, if you're born into a spiritual caste, how does that necessarily give you, it could well give you the spiritual insight to have that, want for a better word, title, but you might be born into a spiritual caste and not be a very spiritual person at all.
Jenny, that is why it has crashed.
Oh, you didn't hear?
So now you, so rightly said, Jenny, rightly said, thank you. But so in India, the Brahmins, most of them are not really spiritual workers or, or priests, or, there are priests, but not all of them are. Right? So yes, the system was or is faulty, but in relation to the respect attribute, if we speak about the respect attribute, the more we hold the spiritual or the mental consciousness associated experiences as higher than the life that we live, we will all be yearning or respecting. The respect that we have for that itself will slowly push us onto that path, right? That is why the Buddha said, when the Brahmins and the Shastriyas, when the Brahmins specifically fail to be the leaders of the caste, the people now respect or look at, who do we look at now? When you look at your kids or people all around the world, people respect people with money these days, right? People look forward to people's aspiration, the aspiration within many of the youth is to become rich, become a billionaire, to have that amount of wealth, to be able to travel to destinations where you can take a nice picture for Instagram, right? So that has affected the culture and the norms by which we live, right? The culture and the norms that we live. That is why the Buddha said, when that happens, corruption and all of these things, there is more sort of potential for wrong to happen, right? That is what the Buddha said, right? Any other questions that we might have? Mike, did you want to say something?
It's incredibly interesting and useful talk. Thank you very much, Bandy. It was it is amazing the parallels between the different teachings of the Buddha. So, I don't think there's anything you've said that I haven't actually said at some stage or the other, but you do it so much more eloquently and and with the ability to put it over in a good way. The big difference, I think, is the understanding of the devotional aspects of Buddhism.
The devotional aspect. Okay.
Yeah, which is something that we don't really concentrate much on, but is so crucial, really, in some ways. I mean, the way that you've put it over has been very interesting for me, because that idea of respect and the reflection of the respect that you hold for the Dhamma, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, as an aspirational concept, an umbrella that you look up to and move towards, strikes a point with me. I think it's a very well-made point. You know, how do you progress in life if you've got no aspirations towards anything?
Yes, absolutely. The I remember there was a I will just a story that I'm going to relate to all of you. When I was living in Burma and I was just flying out to Sri Lanka, I think, yes, I was flying out to Sri Lanka, and one of the close devotees, the PAOK Meditation Center is a very large, very wealthy organization, right? Because they receive a lot of donations, because there are a lot of monks, 1,300 to be specific, and nuns and lay meditators from all around the world who come and benefit from the teaching. So there are a lot of people, they have a lot of wealthy devotees, Burmese devotees, and Singaporean, Chinese, all of them. So one of these wealthy, the reason that I'm saying that this gentleman was wealthy is because then you can gauge the sort of the part of society that he comes from and the interest that he had in the practice. So this gentleman, while he was driving me to the airport, he had one of those scorekeepers that the umpires and in sports they used as scorekeepers, where you just tap and the score keeps on counting, right? He had one of the scorekeepers, and as he was driving, he would be tapping, hitting on this scorekeeper, which was like a ring on his finger, and he was doing this, and I was like, so I asked him, I was wondering what he was doing, and I asked him, what is it that you're doing with that? What is it? I just asked him, what is it that you're doing? And he said that whilst driving, he's contemplating on the attributes of the Buddha, right? So he left the car. He went into the boutique or somewhere, and he left the car and he kept that device in the car. And I saw it had, for that day, it had 6,000 odd counts, right? And so he was quite good at it. It wouldn't take a lot of time because he was used to it. So he would be doing it very fast, right? He would be recollecting it so fast. And what this does is, now just imagine all the negative things that we think sometimes that goes on in our minds, sometimes the anxiety, sometimes the frustration, so different emotions that arise in our mind. When we allow for these kinds of recollections to be consistent in our mind, the framework, the programming of our mind changes, and we get used to a wholesome pattern of thinking, a wholesome attitude when we do face or go through different experiences in life, right? So this is called manasikara. Manasikara. Manasikara, right? Manasikara is reflection, right? Manasikara, right? We will speak more on these words later on, right? We'll speak more of these words later on. Do you think we've had enough, or do we continue? What do you think? We've had enough.
Too much. Very good information, but overload maybe.
Overload. Wonderful, wonderful. But the pace of the class was okay, yes?
Yes.
Pace of the class, okay.
That's good, yeah.
Right. What would you like, if you please let me know what you would like to. I'm not going to sort of make a syllabus for this class. I hope this class will be more of a discussion forum that we could, but I will bring certain sort of a sutta or a small sutta that is a core principle or part of Buddhism that we can discuss and share within ourselves. And it would be, it's very much more efficient, I've learned, for beginners, for people who, you know, just to learn through forum and chit chat almost, you know, through sort of sharing. So I think you would agree with me if I would say, let's have this class chilled out and relaxed while having the data and, you know, receiving all the information that we want as well. Yeah? Does that sound good? Yeah. So what would you like to go, what topics would you like to go into? Karma, I think, of course, karma is something that we have to discuss. Yeah, karma. Love. Love. What else?
Bhavanas is always a good one.
The technique of meditation.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Brahma Viharas.
Brahma Viharas. Okay.
Yeah, they're always good.
Okay. 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 So those are quite enough for a couple of weeks. but I guess now there are so many. There are in Theravada Buddhism, there are 40 samatha objects and 17 vipassana objects of meditation, right? And in elaborating there, and you can mix certain practices as well. For example, you can mix the skeleton. There's a meditation called the skeleton meditation with metta, or loving kindness. So there are different variations, right, of it as well. So totally there are 1,000 techniques of meditation that are in Buddhism, right? That are in Buddhism. You don't need to learn all 1,000 of these, right? You don't need to learn all 1,000 of these. But when you understand the technique, you will know how to mix it. Like we know, like today in the morning, I put spinach and apples and, you know, just shoved everything in a blender. Right? When you know the taste of it, you can just mix, you know how to mix it together, and you know how to mix it together. So that you will slowly learn. Right? So the most important part is keeping your practice going. Right? Having a daily meditation for yourself, supporting yourself, right? And to sort of have a reverence, actually, you know, a reverence towards the Dhamma, right? Where you sort of have such a lovely romantic relationship with the Dhamma. Right? There is a book called Romanticizing the Buddha. Right? which actually talks about welcoming the Buddha into your heart, right? And becoming one with those, just falling in love with the Buddha and the Dhamma, right? In a way that you, because this is all of these things are to motivate ourselves. is to give ourselves the energy, the kick in the butt when we need it. Right? So it is nothing to do with sort of really, that is what I love about Buddhism. You know, it is not about the religion, it is about the practice, right? And that just that is something so refreshing to me, because I wasn't a born Buddhist myself, right? So that is a very refreshing part about Buddhism. It's always about the practice, and each and everything that is sort of said to be done, from the reflections to the reverence to the pujas, the offerings, it's all to do with motivating yourself, keeping yourself in the path, right? Keeping yourself in the path. So lovely. Thank you very much for tuning in, right? It was lovely to meet and see all of you and to interact with all of you, right? Of course, share with your friends if you know anyone who is interested in joining the forum. Share with your friends. And if you have not subscribed, if you are not receiving emails from the Dhamma Center and you would like to receive emails and to be kept updated on what we have going on, please go to our website dhammacenter.uk and subscribe, and I will add you onto the list and you will start receiving all the emails. Now on Saturdays and Sundays we have a question answer session and a meditation, right? And a meditation happening. Now also for the month of May, I think the Buddha's birthday is on the 9th or the 8th of this month. I will let you all know. So we are planning to sort of course, we would usually sort of celebrate and sort of not celebrate, but rather we would have a sort of a day-long retreat or so usually, but of course this time we are in self-isolation, but that is no problem. We are contemplating on having like a day program for the day, so that you can join in from your homes if you are interested, right? I will keep you all posted on any updates. So lovely to see all of you. I've enjoyed this session, I think, as much as you might have enjoyed the session, and we'll meet again very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you, Bhante.